So inside of an array, we can store really anything we want. We can store other arrays, numbers, strings, booleans. Inside of an object, we can store whatever we want as the values. We can store numbers, strings, booleans, null, undefined, other objects, and arrays. So we can mix and match, and often we do work with arrays and objects together. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. This is a really common pattern, to have an array of objects, or to have an object with an object inside of it, or an object with arrays inside of it. The combination of the two is far more powerful than either one on their own. Sometimes, often, we have some ordered data, but not every single thing makes sense to put in an array. And other times, we have data that makes sense to store as key value pairs, and sometimes some of it's ordered, so we'll use an array. So on the left, I've got an example of an array that consists of a bunch of objects. So this is an array, it's called shopping cart, or the variable is, and then inside each one of those elements is an object. It has a product name, Jenga Classic, a price, $6.88, a quantity, 1. Product, echo dot, price, $29.99, quantity, 3. So we get a bunch of information, and this is super abbreviated. For a real shopping cart, there'd be a lot more information in here for each item, but this pattern would hold true. And then over here, I've got an object called student, and inside of it, this is kind of a silly example, but I'm storing strengths, which is an array. I'm putting an object inside a nested object for exams, midterm 92, final 88. All I want to show you is that this is incredibly common, and we should get some practice working with them. So let's make it really simple. Let's do this first example of an array. Let's go with comments. And this will be an array of objects. So I'll do this in the console still. Just use Shift-Enter here. So each comment is an object, which will have, let's say, a username of the person who made it. Let's just go with Tammy. And then her comment text will be, I'm just going to do really stupid stuff. And the number of votes is 9, okay? And then let's add another person, or another entry, rather. We don't have to indent like this at all. I'm just doing it so you can clearly see what I'm doing. Typically, we would follow the same pattern. I can put whatever I want in each object, though. I don't have to be consistent and do username and text and votes. But in most applications, we want to have a consistent pattern. Everyone has a username. I don't want to suddenly call this, username like that, or just name, or I don't want to omit it entirely. So let's go with username. This time we've got Tammy. How about fish boy? That doesn't mean anything to me, but it just came to mind. And then the text of the comment will be, what sort of noise does a fish make? Like glub, glub? Is that the right way of writing that? And then votes will be, how about really high? Everybody loves that comment. Everyone loves fish boy. Let's just start with that, okay? So now we have an array of comments. Let's say 2 comments on one post. This is the first comment, that's the second comment. How do I access glub glub? Think about it for a moment. Okay, here's what we need to do. Comments, and then I need to access this element of the array, which is the second element, index of 1. And then I need to chain onto that text, dot text, or I could use square brackets, and I get glub glub. Let me show you an example of something slightly more complicated. So this is data that I took from reddit.com. This is actually their underlying data structure that they use. So we've got this massive object. I put it in a variable. It was not in a variable. We'll actually learn more about this later. It's something called JSON. We haven't considered APIs and servers and anything like that yet. But if we take a look, we've got a lot of object brackets, a lot of array brackets. So let's scroll down and just take a look at what represents a single post on Reddit. So this is a single post right here. There's a list called children, an array of children. And then this one ends somewhere all the way down here. So all of this information corresponds to a single post on the homepage of Reddit. So there's a lot of stuff in here. Like, I don't even know what kind means. T3, I don't know. But then we've got the full name of the author. We've got, if it was gilded, it looks like it has not been gilded. 0 times it's been gilded. Is it hidden? It's false. Have I clicked it or someone clicked it? Have I saved it? False, false. So those are Booleans. Here's the title. Here is, let's see, there's no thumbnail associated with it, so they're null, I believe. The number of upvotes, I think they just call it ups. It's a public subreddit. All of this stuff here, lots of information. But then take a look at this. On Reddit, you can award people's comments or people's posts. So there's an array called all awardings. And I don't really know how this works, if it has awards or not. Does it? I'm not sure. I honestly haven't taken a look at this in detail, but there's a nested structure, an array with objects inside once again. And remember, we're inside of an object, inside of an array. So we've got an array with an object, with an object, with an array, and it's just nested, and it's super common to have that. So here's an example. I think this one has an image on it, whatever this post is, and it has this preview property, and then an array called images. The property is images, there's an array, and then each image is a large object which has all this information about it, different resolutions in a different array. So I hope I'm not scaring you, because that's not the point. I mean, if I was faced with this data structure, it takes time. You got to get used to it and get comfortable with how it's set up, right? You don't just memorize this, but you should be able to hopefully leave this video understanding that it's really, really common to mix and match arrays and objects together. They are far more powerful in tandem than they are on their own, because most of our data in the real world is a mixture of key value stuff and ordered lists of information. You put it all together, you get a mess of arrays and objects all nested, and it makes everything a lot easier to represent. Even if it can be a little intimidating to follow, it is a super common pattern. So there we go, arrays and objects living in harmony forever.